Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dualta, and in this podcast series, I'll be speaking to investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world, and we'll be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. Today, I'm speaking to a young entrepreneur in Ireland called Ed Rossiter. He has worked for Morgan McKinley and Azon, and has made the bold decision to go out on his own. Dublin's a booming market, and I really appreciated Ed coming on the podcast because a lot of people come on once they've achieved their success in their business, but he was very happy to come on and talk about his plan, talk about the industry, what he wants to do, and we just had a great discussion about it and how he thinks he can do things slightly different, using new tools that are out there, but also keeping true to the traditional consultative approach that he's been trained in. And I wish him all the best. I hope you enjoy. Dublin's flying, by the way. Anybody listen to this who wants to go home, give me a shout. It is booming. Ed Rossiter, how are you?
Dualta, how are you doing? How are you keeping?
I'm brilliant today, actually. I tell you what, I am away to Wembley in a few hours' time to see Chelsea and Spurs. A mate of mine had spare tickets, so I'm buzzing about that.
Very good, very good. Are you Chelsea or Spurs fan?
Neither. I'm a Man U fan, but they had
same as. Very good.
Spare tickets, so first time in Wembley, so excited about that.
Very good, very good.
Well, look, thanks for coming on. Really,
no problem. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Are you as good looking in real life as you are in your LinkedIn picture?
It's all smoke and mirrors, I think. Same as most people in LinkedIn. Yeah.
Very good, very good. Piercing blue eyes on LinkedIn, unbelievable.
Yeah, there we go.
Lady killer. All right. So Ed, I've given everybody a brief intro, but
yeah,
tell me where it began for you in recruitment. You didn't go straight into the industry out of university.
Yeah, so I guess, as is well documented, at the time when I came out of university, it was pretty poor in terms of the economic climate. So I really struggled to get a job, even at the most basic level. So a couple of my friends started discussing what we should do, and I suppose, long story short, we actually decided to launch a magazine which was going to be dedicated to a lifestyle around college and where I went to college in Limerick, which is a regional city in Ireland. It's a big uni town, so so that kind of kept me going for 2 years. To be honest, it was a lot of fun, as you can imagine. I guess there's a lot of things that I have taken from that, even that still stands to me. So I used to look after all the sales, so literally door to door, from bars, clubs, restaurants, advertising agencies, all that kind of stuff, which was great experience, I guess, coming out of college, and experience that you probably wouldn't get nowadays straight out of college unless you did launch your own business. So
yeah, let me jump into that. So yeah, most of us moved abroad whenever the recession happened.
Yeah.
But you've played quite high level rugby. Was that a reason to stay? Were you quite committed to that?
Yeah, I was, I guess, and that's what brought me to Limerick in the first place. So I'm actually from the southeast of the country, in a place called Wexford. So yeah, not a massive rugby town, albeit within Leinster, which is obviously quite well known nowadays. But yeah, Munster, I suppose, and Limerick is where I ended up. At the time, Munster were kind of the kings of rugby, so kind of brought me down there. And yeah, got a scholarship to University of Limerick and that. So yeah, that's what.
Was there a shot of you making it at rugby?
I suppose, looking back, potentially, yeah, but no, it just wasn't to be. I guess probably wasn't as dedicated at the time as others, but yeah, I got the opportunity to kind of train with a lot of the internationals and stuff, and got a few A caps, as they call them. So yeah, not all bad, but never signed a dotted line. Still waiting on Joe Schmidt, of course. Don't think it's going to happen.
It's the golden age of Irish rugby, though, so I don't think there's any bit. You still play a bit, though, don't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, so I'm playing in Dublin Old Belvedere Rugby Club. So yeah, it's great. And look, even from a professional point of view, one thing I would always suggest when I'm talking to people getting into any kind of role is, sport is a brilliant way of developing a network, and just like any kind of community, it turns into a network once you move into the professional world. So that's definitely stood to me for sure. And obviously made a few friends and had a few good nights along the way as well. So
very good. Okay, so those early days you were getting into sales through the magazine, and it was the rugby that kept you in the country. It's fair to say.
Yeah.
At what point did you kind of go, I'm growing out of this uni thing, I need to get a real job?
Yeah, so I think like 99.9% of everyone that ends up in recruitment, there was a stumble, fall, and trip into the industry, really. So I was lucky enough, I guess, and it's kind of formed where I've ended up today, that I actually moved into BDO. So BDO obviously is an international accountancy practice, which might cause a few people to say, well, how does recruitment come into that? So in Limerick, they actually have a recruitment agency, so within the accountancy practice. So I was lucky enough to really be sitting in the centre of finance team and specialists and accounting specialists for that year, which definitely formed, I guess, the knowledge base that I had. And versus having to talk to people over a phone or meet externally, I could literally call over to the guy beside me and ask what certain things meant. So in the early days of recruitment, and especially in accounting and finance recruitment, hugely valuable experience. And I guess from my personal point of view, I was still figuring out what recruitment was. After a while, I decided that, this actually mightn't be so bad. But if I wanted to do it, I think I wanted to do it in a bigger place, So
it's fair to say that BDO was a bit of a soft landing.
Absolutely, yeah, and it was a great landing. In fairness, great starting point for sure.
So you really, you kind of went and cut your teeth then in Morgan McKinley. Was that in Limerick or Dublin?
Both. So, yeah, they have a regional office in Limerick. And again, at that time, I suppose 2012, 2013 wasn't the healthiest of economies. We're starting to recover, but it wasn't brilliant. So I guess one thing from working in a regional office, as a lot of your listeners will know, the job flow can be lighter than a lot of the big cities, of course. So in terms of honing in on certain skills and understanding that when you did get a job on or an assignment from a client, you treated that with a huge amount of respect, and you did work all the hours you could to give yourself the best chance possible of actually placing it. So at the time, from, as I said, an economy point of view, there wasn't that much job flow in the regions anyway. I've gone through a pretty tough period, especially in the Midwest or Limerick region. So yeah, definitely honed my skills in terms of actually getting the process correct from taking a job order all the way through the placement. So great experience. So when I did actually get the chance to move to Dublin, the job flow was obviously a lot better. So I guess
let me ask you about that. So I'm from Donegal, and I moved away quite a while ago, but
haven't lost the accent.
Yeah, so sometimes it's there. I think it comes when I speak to Irish people more. But when I think about when I think of Ireland, I think of Dublin, and then I think of the rest of Ireland.
Yeah.
And especially when you're from regional Ireland, did you see a big difference in attitude from people who were starting their career in Limerick to when you moved to Dublin?
Yeah, I guess, look, it comes down to job flow and that kind of thing. It does, I mean, you're not given the same amount of opportunity simply because there just isn't the same volume of opportunities down there. So I always looked at it as a positive thing for sure. As I said, it honed in on certain skills that maybe I would have taken for granted had I started out in a bigger city or in Dublin, where the job flow is healthier. You can always kind of say, oh, maybe the next job will be mine, or I'll fill that one. So when I did get to Dublin, and I noticed, I guess, even the job flow and the amount of work that could be an opportunity that was out there, it definitely opened my eyes a bit. And as I said, it definitely stood to me, the regional experience that I had and the process that I had taken from that.
Did you go straight into a team lead position in Dublin, or
Yes, yes. So I know you've had a competitor, Ed Heffernan of Barden. So we used to work with all of the guys there essentially. So when he set up his agency, that's what opened up the opportunity to move to Dublin with Morgan McKinley. So that's how it came about, I guess. And the team lead role was a natural step up for me, and probably the regions didn't offer that anyway. But yeah, I always wanted to get to Dublin at some stage.
What was it like going into a team lead role without essentially knowing the market inside out in Dublin? Was did you feel like you were treading on anybody's toes, or was it a smooth transition?
Pretty smooth, I would say. More so down to the fact that the team had been pretty much decimated when Ed decided to set up his own place. So,
Very good man, Ed.
yeah. So look, I was very lucky. I had a very good boss at the time. He was actually working with the guys with Ed at the moment. So that was a big helping hand for me. When I got up there, I guess it was focusing on what you're good at, and we'll build out the managerial experience from there. And look, I always suggest that people get into a bigger agency initially, especially if they're cutting their teeth in recruitment. The process, the training, the L&D is very, very strong, especially in the likes of an MMK. So
I think to add to that, I completely agree with you. To add to that, learning the intensity of the work as well, that you won't get in a boutique where there's more established people who can take shortcuts. When you're in a place where it's a machine where they're constantly training people, best practices drawn back all the time, and there's a certain expectation put on you to work your ass off.
Absolutely.
That'll stay with you if you felt it. Otherwise, you've nothing to judge it by.
Exactly, and it's the process and the pace, I think, is something that I've always taken from my time in Morgan McKinley. And that's the big thing. So that implementing processes, best in class, high performance type processes is something that I still carry with me, and will be carrying with me for the foreseeable in Phoenix.
When you were, because you're a young lad, but you've moved through the ranks quite quickly at Morgan McKinley. Were you billing consistently?
Yeah, so I guess a good story to give you my first day when I moved up.
Because some people try and get off the tools, right?
Yeah, and look, I mean, there is a lot of that, especially in bigger agencies. Of course, it's just natural. It's just not. It's impossible to have everyone billing, of course, right? So I was lucky enough that I was at a stage and a level where I could continue to bill, and bill quite well. So I think, I mean, a good story. First day I arrived at Dublin, having gone through, not to be painting the regions as the poor cousins, but pretty poor job flow at times and that. And I went to my first client meeting, I think in day 2. I came back with like 25 finance jobs. So my eyes were open pretty quickly as what the opportunity was like in Dublin. And pretty quickly I got stuck in. The accountancy and finance knowledge, even pulling from BDO, was standing to me pretty well. And within the first year I was number 1 biller and stuff. So
what'd you bill?
Sorry?
What'd you bill?
I think it was 420 or something like that. Yeah.
That's some nice numbers.
Perm desk, yeah. So it was good. And look, I mean, from my own point of view, was always stepping into managerial role next, which was the big challenge.
How did you balance your time between being a manager and billing?
At life, I said I didn't struggle initially, but you do figure it out. I guess I think everyone's different.
What were the big takeaway learnings?
The takeaway learnings for me initially definitely was not everyone is motivated the same way you are. Not everyone is wired the same way you are. I definitely took that away pretty quickly. So it's a balancing act, I guess. You got to play, and going back to a sport analogy, you got to kind of play the man rather than the team, I guess,
So with that in mind, and let's talk about balance. So you've moved to a new city, you're doing well, you're earning money, there's a bit of crack, there's a buzz in the office. Are you still managing to keep up rugby at the same level?
Yeah. So actually I went a level up, funny, when I went to Dublin. So I was getting involved in the local club here in Dublin, which was at the time was at the top end of the amateur scene. I'd actually got called into the Irish amateur team as well. So it was a big balancing act, and I guess, look, it was a big challenge to find the time to do everything. The one thing I would say is having to be on a pitch. So I guess having to be on a pitch at a certain time throughout the week definitely focused the mind and made me or forced me to be a little bit more organized, which was good.
Okay. And with your career kind of just went, once you got the hang of this, you kind of went from manager to senior manager. You're earning good money. You're at the biggest firm, probably one of the biggest firms in Dublin in terms of the space you're in. You have all the candidates, you have all the clients, you have loads of people working for you. Why risk all that and go to a boutique?
Yeah, good question. I think for me, sitting in a bigger agency and seeing how a machine of that size operates, I definitely found there was a shift in the market, a very early stage shift, which has definitely become quite strong. And that was moving away from maybe the bigger brands, which sometimes state they're specialists, but in every area. To me, that's a generalist. So I think similar enough to the UK market, as you know, it's starting to shift definitely towards more of a specialist niche provider where you just get what you're talking about and there's an expert on the other end of the phone or the meeting. So that's something that I saw. The other side to it, I guess, I never saw how a business operated within recruitment. Definitely not a sizable business. So that definitely was a motivator for looking at potentially a boutique firm. And yeah, Asian was a good fit at the time.
Do you think, if you're completely honest,
yeah,
it might be down to your own entrepreneurial?
Yeah, I think that definitely was, I wouldn't say eating away with me, but it was definitely in the back of my mind that there was a process to this whole thing. So getting the big machine-like or big corporate recruitment environment behind me, and then understanding how a business operated, within the recruitment world, and I probably wasn't going to get that for a long time at Morgan McKinley. So yeah, a boutique was probably the next natural step for a period before ultimately setting up my own place.
Yeah, because I've done something similar, albeit not as much of a high flyer as yourself. I did the Robert Walters thing for 3 years, and then I went to a boutique in Canada.
Okay.
And then when I was in the boutique in Canada, I remember thinking, all you're really offering me is an office space here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Aeson has more to offer than that, but that's all I was really felt I was offered. And I remember thinking, well, I'll just stick it out. And if I can do this at any way possible, I'm sure I could do it for myself. Would you advise people, if you said earlier you'd advise people to start at a large agency?
Yeah.
Would you also advise them to try a boutique as well once you've gained everything a large agency could give you?
Yes and no. Being honest, I guess it depends what type of boutique you're going into, and obviously who's in the boutique. So, if it's a boutique specialist area that you're in currently and like-minded people, then absolutely, it can give you a very good insight into how to run a business and scale a business even. So that's definitely learnings that a lot of people won't ever see in a bigger agency or a big corporate agency. So I would definitely suggest that. What I would say is a lot of people probably become frustrated coming from a bigger agency into a smaller agency when they walk in the door and there's a lack of process, procedures, even professionalism at times, depending on where you go. So
the pace of things is tough to deal with too.
Yeah, exactly. You have a mix of people from bigger agencies they're used to a certain pace, and then you have obviously people who have grown up essentially in a boutique agency that have never experienced that pace potentially. So yeah.
Intensity is a hard thing to train people, and
Sure.
unless you have a natural entrepreneurial way of working it, it's I see it when I interview the differences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you did almost 2 years in Aeson. What would you say your biggest takeaways were from coming from a large agency?
There's tons, being honest. Yeah, so look, it was a great experience. Everything from obviously doing what I do, still do, recruiting day to day, continuing that, I suppose, building a team around what I had envisaged for the accountancy and finance and professional services teams there. So, but even just stuff that I'd never done before, like open a regional office. So I ended up opening their regional office in Limerick. built out the network there, built out the team.
Did you move down and do that?
No, so I actually had someone who's very, very strong in the Limerick market, who's a qualified lawyer. So she joined and she headed up the Limerick office, and we grew it out from there, which was great. Obviously,
fantastic.
Yeah. So I have a lot of connections still down there. I still have a house down there. My brother's there, so I'm down there quite a bit, and yeah, my connections are still quite strong. So that did help. But yeah, experience-wise, everything from walking up the main street looking for an office to buying toasters and kettles was all new stuff to me. So, but yeah, stuff that I still count on today, setting up my own agency for sure, you know.
So it sounds like you've had the perfect lead in to the point that we're at right now. You know, you did industry specific, then you went big agency, then you got the setup experience with Azon. Did you always know you'd run your own recruitment firm?
Yeah, I did. I mean, going back to the entrepreneurial spirit, it's definitely been there. Even going back to school times, you know, importing headphones and selling them on and that kind of stuff. So it's always been there. And I guess I come from a somewhat entrepreneurial family as well. So yeah, it's always been there. I guess the process for me was understanding every aspect of recruitment, from processes all the way down to actually doing the job, and then obviously scaling businesses and teams and stuff. So yeah, I was lucky. It's been a pretty good lead into where I am now. And yeah, I guess from my own point of view, setting up my own agency, I wanted to do something slightly different. So even though it's early days, obviously it's still planning stages, but we're planning to do it slightly different than maybe other agencies are doing it currently.
Cool. Can we jump into some of that?
Cool.
All right. So what's the first thing you do when you're thinking of setting up an agency? What are the first questions that come to mind? And we've had a brief discussion on this already, but just in a more broader sense.
Okay. I suppose first thing, don't panic when you realize you're by yourself. Yeah, I guess the understanding, first of all, what you wanted to stand for. And I explored different options, I guess, when I decided to set up my own place. There was private equity back routes, which we flew to London and obviously explored that a little bit, which is a good model. I guess it's an interesting one. It depends how much of your business you want to give up. So
not if you speak to the people who didn't make it.
Yeah, well, that's true. And look, I think there's horror stories wherever you look. No matter what avenue you look. But yeah, it's definitely was worth exploring for the initial stages. But I guess from my own point of view, just decided to go it alone. I had enough knowledge and network here locally to hopefully build out and scale out a reputable brand. The other side to it is, I guess, and I was lucky enough to speak to Greg Savage on it, was, what do you want? You know, do you want an exit in 4 or 5 years and ride off into the sunset with a bit of cash, or do you actually want to build a somewhat of a legacy, a reputable brand, business that's going to be standing hopefully longer than you will? So, and that's definitely what I want to do. So,
yeah, and it's probably for the best, because that right after the sunset stuff, I don't know if that exists in the current marketplace.
Yeah, very, very hard to sell a recruitment business. Probably didn't realize that. For the majority of recruitment businesses, it seems quite difficult to ride off into the sunset for sure. Yeah,
big time. But you can still create a business that you can eventually work yourself out of to a point, and you could have a lasting legacy with a great income. And I think that's probably where the market is now, instead of buying and selling and flipping them like their houses.
Exactly. That's what I definitely took from my explorations of it.
And when you're working out, so you're going to take some things from your Morgan McKinley experience. You're going to take some things from your Azon. You're going to have your own beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you researching any competitors in the Dublin market that appeal to you as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of competitors, especially in the Dublin local market here, for sure. And
we've had half them on the show.
Yeah, you've had most of them on the show, so I'm the last one, I think. No, it's been great to see them scale. I guess obviously coming from a scaling business as well, and having been one of the leaders to scale that, that's given me a great insight too. So the one thing, and going back to my college days, I guess, and I did a bachelor in business and marketing, was understanding the branding element, and it's something that I guess there was a lot of focus on in everywhere I've been, really, to build a brand that's known for something, and I think it's changed. There's definitely been a fundamental shift as to how people brand themselves and the platforms they use it on. I know we've talked about it in some detail recently. So that was kind of something for me that was a motivator for setting up my own agency as well, where we could do something differently, communicate differently than what's out there, and not just be, oh yeah, I'm an expert in certain areas.
Yeah, and I suppose that's going to be part of your strategy, isn't it? You're going to try and engage people through content as well as just service.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I listened to Joe Mullings on your podcast recently, so I followed him for quite a while.
What a hero he is.
Yeah, incredible. Very interesting guy, and I know he does work with the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff. So yeah, those kind of influencers, I suppose, has formed my idea of and helped me form, I guess, my own strategy going forward.
Yeah. There's a few man crushes out there on Joe Mullings, I think.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I'm thinking of getting sleeve tattoos.
yeah. Get on the testosterone replacement therapy, or whatever, however he's that size in his 50s. I don't know.
Crazy stuff.
But yeah, he's definitely adding a cool edge to the way he's mapping it out, and I suppose he'd be an interesting person for you too, because it's a scalable boutique model. He only has 20 odd people.
Yeah.
Now the revenues are north of 9 million, but it's not like he's got 100 heads, which that's what's impressive about it. He doesn't have to manage 100 people coming and going like other brands do.
Yeah.
And he's able, because of that, he's then able to put his personal brand into the business. And I think it's just fascinating the way that he's able to do that.
Definitely, and I think that's been the big shift that I've seen, is your boutique agencies, and good boutique agencies obviously having experts and professionals and hiring people from professional backgrounds into recruitment, which I know he does, and a number of other agencies do, obviously, and it's a tactic that I've always done, and gone back to BDO days, where obviously it's full of professionals and qualified accountants and that.
It's how Michael Page initially launched their business 30 odd years ago. And they still try and say that they do that, but they don't really. They're too big. It's a grad machine. There's a certain size, and I think I was talking to Ed about this, is there's a certain size you get to where you need to hire more people quickly to keep the growth up, and you won't be able to always find a lawyer or a doctor. You need to go with a grad. Exactly. So that fundamentally changes the culture.
Yeah.
So you either have to decide, are you going to continue to be Joe Mullings and be a boutique that is a high revenue, or are you going to be the next Morgan McKinley?
Yeah, and that's again formed part of my strategy as well, and understanding exactly, and I suppose advice to listeners would be to understand what the vision is, So once you've decided whether or not it's a brand and a business, legacy business that you want to build, what type of business then, and what does the structure look like? So that professional approach is definitely something that I've always done. And I think when you look at potential issues, and from talking to plenty of clients and candidates about it, and it's another part of our strategy, is to tackle the problem that's out there, and that's the actual engagement around agencies and clients and candidates. And I think there's more and more clients becoming frustrated, companies becoming frustrated, because, as you said yourself, different faces every day in the bigger agencies. So how do they tackle that? It's obviously to find a trusted partner that's a specialist in a certain area. So again, it's kind of getting ahead maybe of the curve there a small bit.
Maybe not. I believe in joint branding. So although I'm not doing a lot of work in Dublin or wherever my guests are from, I still like to be able to promote them through the podcast and to give them a reach. And I think that the more that we become media companies that also recruit, the more way that'll be an added thing in the future. And that's a Joe Mullings thing as well. And Steve Lewis, who does Recruiter Fuel, who I introduced you to.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the big thing for me is obviously that expert advice and having it as almost as much of a professional service as a legal or accountancy firm, but that almost been the second part of the conversation because, as you said, you're almost a media platform.
So where are we going to be when we call you up in a year's time?
Who knows? Yeah, look, I mean, from
law of attraction, visualize it for me. Conor McGregor me through the final bit here.
Stuff, yeah.
You're not going to be branding yourself like him anyway.
Yeah, I'm not going to be knocking anyone out either. So hopefully, no, look, I mean, from my side, it's understanding exactly where I want to get to in the next year, and that to me looks like maybe an additional 3 or 4 hires, which hopefully will be on board in the next few months. Professional backgrounds, but really pushing hard through social platforms and building a brand that way versus your traditional routes, but keeping the core of being obviously a professional recruitment service at the forefront too.
Fantastic. Well, Ed, we'll get you back on whenever I got video and all the rest, and we can see if you're as good looking in real life.
Great, and thanks for having me.
All right,
congrats on the podcast. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, there you go. Another ambitious young entrepreneur in Dublin setting up and taking the risk to go out on his own. It's great to see the economy is back in full swing in Dublin. And this year we're going to focus on getting over there and maybe doing a few live podcasts with some of the characters that have been on the show already. And yeah, it'll be great to get into the city and to add video to this podcast. That's the next stage of our evolution. So thanks so much for everybody who's been tuning in. The listens are now at 26,000, which is brilliant. And even this week alone, in the last 7 days, it's been 2,000 downloads, which is way more than we ever thought would be possible. And I'm going to do a little podcast on why you should set up a podcast as a recruiter and how you can go about it, because it is the best thing that we've done as a business. All right, we will be back later with that. Talk soon.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.